go ahead and call the steering committee into session tonight. Becky, if you would, please call the roll.
Commissioner Irvin,
Here.
Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Cush,
Here.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Here.
Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Commissioner Stevens,
Here.
Commissioner Rather.
Here.
Well, we have a quorum and prepared to conduct our business. Members, I'll be acting tonight as a temporary chair pursuant to Rule 7B of the Board of Commissioners Handbook. A question has arisen as to whether the election of the steering committee's officers were held in public. So in order to be transparent and out of caution, we're holding new elections for this committee for the officers tonight. So I'm going to open the floor for nominations for chairman. Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir.
I nominate Chris.
Craig.
Why did I say Chris?
Okay, have a nomination.
You start.
I second.
Have a motion and a second for Craig Harris.
Who is your second?
Mr. Irvin.
Steve Irvin.
Are there other nominations?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I think all of us got this letter from one person, although this has been mentioned to me 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks, about, and you may just want me to say what I need to say and make the nomination, but it was brought to, I think it was sent to all of us, at least us, maybe the whole commission, about qualifying strengths and with various nominees, experience, things like that. I think on this particular committee, that's important to know when we appoint people to other boards. We want to know what their qualifications may be or experiences or whatever. So I'm going to make a nomination, and I'm going to nominate Robert Stevens. However, I do want to mention some qualifications that he has. This is his 10th year of practicing law. I didn't know some of this. It was kind of interesting. He graduated Lipscomb University with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science with a summa cum laude, University of Memphis School of Law, magna cum laude. He's been a commissioner. He's in his 3rd term. And for the last year, we all know, served as chairman of this committee. He's also in his 7th year serving on the Board of Trustees for Motlow College, was also the secretary, and I do know for a fact, very involved as well as secretary of the Smyrna Rotary Club. And with that being said, I make the nomination for Robert Stevens.
I'll second.
Have a motion for Robert Stevens and a second by Chairman Cush. Are there other nominations? Seeing none, we will do a voice vote. We have 2 nominations. Is there a motion that all nominations cease?
So moved.
Have a motion, nominations cease. Okay. So next we will.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. We have to take a vote on the motion. It was seconded, but you might want to take a roll call on that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Nominations cease. All in favor of nominations ceasing, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries. Now back to the vote. So we will start. Becky, if you would, please just call the roll, and we'll take the vote.
Commissioner Irvin,
Craig Harris.
Commissioner Harris,
Craig Harris.
Commissioner Cush,
Robert Stevens.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Craig Harris.
Commissioner Reed,
Craig Harris.
Commissioner Stevens,
Stevens.
Commissioner Rather.
Commissioner Stevens.
4-3 for Harris.
4-3 to Harris. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn the gavel back over to you as chairman, and you can conduct the vice chairman election at this point. And as you're making your way up, I want to thank, I believe somebody brought me happy birthday donuts, so I've got to leave and go make a speech, and I'm going to share the love and let everybody pass these donuts. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I'm just glad to have a birthday. Okay, so
Is this what make you feel better? Like, I was 15 when you were born.
You're driving. Wow. Okay, well, thank you.
I was busy chasing girls too.
Thank you for the donuts. I appreciate the birthday wishes.
It's got Cheerios.
Steve's here, give him an award. It's in my name.
Oh, big good day.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. Bring them Brussels downstairs.
All right, appreciate everybody votes, appreciate all of us. I hope we have unity. There's some things that I want to do as chairman in the next 12 months that I want to give a lot of attention to. If you can indulge me, number one is we got a big issue coming up about districting. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have as smooth transition as we can. I want to make sure every commissioner has a say, input, but at the end, I want it to be a vote where we're all in unity instead of being all over the place. The second thing is that we have a vote on the infrastructure committee, which is brought up by Commissioner Cush, and one of the things I like to do as steering committee is I like to give him as much support as we can. I'd like to work with our representatives, kind of in the words of Mike Cush, hold their feet to the fire, and not only work with our legislators, but work with the other county legislators as well. The third thing that I want to do is, and it's very important to me, and it's something that is very passionate, is I want to bring awareness to the drug problem that we have. Nobody really talks about it, nobody really says anything about it, but as of 12 months, we've had 1,100 ODs and 91 deaths, and the number keeps rising. We are, with incarceration, lack of labor production, we're looking at this county is costing us millions. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to bring awareness to it. I had 3 county committee chairs on this committee. I had director of drug courts. I got Robert Stevens, who deals with it every day. And between all of us, I got Robert P., I got Paul Johnson, I got people that we can bring awareness to. So I challenge everybody that we come together on this and we try to figure a way that we can bring awareness to this program, to this problem, and try to deal with it. I don't have all the answers. I just know that I'm tired of burying kids, I'm tired of looking for kids, and I want to do something about it. So as far as I need your help, I'm going to need all your help. And somebody said that, man, you're awful passionate. I'm not passionate. I'm desperate. So I hope that we can come together on that. Thank y'all for indulging me on that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Pettis Reed for vice chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Is any more nominations? Do I have a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Second.
We got a Commissioner Cush, second by Commissioner Rather. Cease nominations. Do a voice vote. All those in favor of stopping nominations, send by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Commissioner Reed, Vice Chair. Next thing, let's get to our agenda. First thing we need to do is approve minutes from our last meeting.
Just interrupt real quick. Is everybody clear that we didn't have to vote on Pettis because he's the only one that's nominated? So by unanimous consent, he is the vice chairman. Everybody
Yes.
clear? All right.
Strike one.
That's all right. I've had people not vote for me before.
I guess that's true, huh? Thank you, Dick. First thing we'll do is, on our agenda, is first thing is we want to approve the minutes from last meeting. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have read those minutes, and I found no problems with them. At this time, I'll make that motion. We approve those minutes.
Second.
Commissioner Cooch, second. All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's get to our next thing. I'm going to pass these out. I sent these on your emails. This is a copy of the committees that we have, and the second and third page is the request from the commissioners on the committees that they want to be part of.
I don't think they're on this.
I'm not sure what's in the back.
For steering, just for steering.
One was the request, and the other one was the assignment.
Commissioner Phillips, we need to schedule typically the way we decide.
You got a couple more copies requested.
First month.
This is the recommendation. Got a couple more copies.
Okay, you got a copy there of everything. I just want to note that 19 out of 21 commissioners got their first and second. Only 2 got their third. And so we pretty much got everything handled. I feel like I took my third choice, and so did Virgil Gammon, and the rest had their first and second. What I want to go over with real quick is the dates of these committee meetings. Budget and Finance will meet Thursday before the commission meeting.
Wait a minute.
Is that wrong?
No. Just need to do the steering committee.
Okay.
Then after the next commission meeting, they'll set the dates for the other committee.
Well, steering committee will meet the first Monday of the month.
What time?
5:30.
5:30?
Yes, sir. All right, is there any questions on these committees? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Steve Barber said we got a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor of these committees, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Standing committees pass. Next thing on the agenda is proposed to change current policy on tobacco use. I asked, Sonia had come to me with this, and I think this is something that we definitely need to address. This is handies out. This is the policy that is in that is now, and the policy she is proposing. Sonia, come on up, please. I'm kind of go ahead and go at it right now. I've kind of looked at this and I kind of studied it. Why would you want to implement a smoke, vape, tobacco-free work site?
Well, there's several reasons. One, because as we continue to look at the health of our employees, what we're doing on our healthcare plans and those type things, offering the smoking cessation and all the other things to help try to maintain the premiums, keep the premiums low. So, if we care about our employees and want to make sure that they're healthy, trying to help them find other solutions for smoking. The other reason, as we look at our fiscal responsibility to our taxpayers is to make sure that if smoking does continue, that we put some parameters in place, that they're not done on the clock and those type things. Some other reasons would be to improve the productivity, the time away from the desk throughout the days. Several department heads, elected officials over the years have come to me and said, we need a solution to try to come up, trying to be mindful of the people who do smoke, but also be mindful of those who do not. And so they have come to me with, what can we do? So one of these reasons is because it was brought to us, so looking at some possible scenarios for that.
So we're looking at adding vaping to the wording.
That's new. The electronic cigarettes is, and the vaping, they're kind of same thing, pretty much. When that ruling came out, we had been waiting for the state to make some of their changes in their policies. The Board of Education put policies in place. They're totally smoke-free campuses, all their grounds. If you go to a football game or anything, you can't smoke, at a football game, a basketball game, or any of those things. So looking at what the state had done with their policies, they've made their work environment a smoke-free environment. And so I was just hoping that the county would follow suit.
Well, I believe vaping's very unhealthy, don't you?
Yes, I think currently the CDC had a report out, I think it was August 30th. They put out a report, and they're just now, of course, you don't know the long-term effects. Anytime something's new, it takes several years for this to come around to see what the long-term effects are going to be. But they are having an issue right now. In 22 states, there is a severe pulmonary disease that's going on with vaping. And they put that out on the CDC. And so, to answer your question, I don't vape, but based on what the CDC is saying, that it can be, pretty harmful, and the effects may be actually worse for you than smoking.
Well, the only thing I'm kind of worried about is, like, if we say nicotine, we had to start thinking of the people who are trying to quit smoking. So I'm talking about the gum, oils, and all that stuff. So how are you going to, how can we word this to where we want to do the vaping, but we got to be careful, the nicotine is fun? Because I think, on our health insurance, we actually help people with that, don't we?
There are several different ways. The federal government has a program called Just Quit, and it's free. It's been out there since 2009. They put this out to try to help people learn to quit smoking. There's all kinds of programs, and also they provide incentives for people to help them quit smoking. The state of Tennessee has a plan, Cigna. We do all kinds of smoking cessation plans. It's one of the areas that's covered. It will help them with if they need Chantix or some of those type things, the patches, the Nicoderm patches. They will do counseling. They will, they have all kinds of programs that will assist with that. So not only does the county have it, but the state and the federal government. So even if it was a part-time employee that maybe doesn't participate in our insurance plan, there are other tools that we can provide with them. Life Services EAP has some tools that will help them as well. So anybody who has a desire, now some people that smoke aren't necessarily going to want to quit smoking just because, we're not doing smoke, we're having a smoke-free environment. But if they do decide that they want to, we also have some tools that would be either free or at greatly reduced prices. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Commissioner Rutherford.
I know St. Thomas Rutherford is a smoke-free campus. State Farm apparently is a smoke-free campus because you can go down to Jarnett certain times of the day, and there's a crowd of State Farm employees out on the sidewalk of the Jarnett, and it's 20 degrees outside. So they must have a smoke-free. And the health issues we all know, the vaping is just now coming out. Like you were talking about, the vaping caused pneumonia, deaths from vaping, teenagers. And I don't understand why, decades and decades ago, I guess when I was a kid, they quit. Winston, Marlboro, they couldn't advertise on TV anymore. But then Juul, which my understanding is one pot of Juul contains as much nicotine as one pack of cigarettes, but they can advertise. So that's a whole nother level. But I've been in the MedPoint clinics, and I know that there's always materials there that advertise or at least they put in front of you if you're wanting to quit. Here's some help, here's some things we can do to help you. I'm all for it for that reason, just to help. I smoked for a long time, and I was sick a lot. And when I quit smoking, I'm not sick near as much as I was when I smoked. And I can actually breathe better and sleep better. But anyway, I think it's a long-term benefit to the employees. Plus, you're not going to have cigarette butts laying around on the ground that may be out on the road because they've gone out to the edge of the campus to smoke. You know, that's a hard thing to kick. But I think that's the right direction to go.
Well, when I was doing the research, the American Lung Association has tons of information, and you see this little picture that they had. I'm sorry, I should have printed you one up. Everything that's in red, and it has it in order, are the diseases that are caused by smoking that they have associated with the health risk. And there's some 13, 20, there are 32 different types of lung cancer, trachea cancer, lip cancer, esophageal, stomach cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic, kidney, cervical, bladder, colorectal, strokes, coronary heart disease, periodontist, pneumonia, asthma, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis. That's just a small sampling. And they've linked all of this back. So as we look at it, and this, I'm kind of conflicted because I have friends who smoked, and my dad smoked for many years, and he said after he smoked, he didn't realize food tastes so good. But, it's a hard thing to do, but I have to think about the people who are getting the secondhand smoke, the third-hand smoke, the people that walk by. Our current policy is that it's not within 25 feet of a door, which is also what they put into code, Tennessee code. I think Bredesen is the one who put that in 2007, that you couldn't smoke within so many feet of a door. And at the state, they'll actually fine you. Like, I know the sheriff's, that would not be favorable with the sheriff's office to go around giving people tickets for smoking, but it's like a $50 fine for the first offense and a $100 fine if you get caught the first time. So I'm not advocating for that. I just think that we need to try to, if somebody wants to quit smoking, let's help them. But starting with the smoke-free campus, might encourage somebody who might not have thought about it otherwise.
Just a thought, because I don't want an employee to think, well, here's another dumb rule I have to follow. Just one more thing I can't do, because I get told what I can and can't do all the time. This is like a lot of things where education is going to be very important. If maybe the department heads had those materials, not banking on somebody going to MedPoint, finding it hanging on the wall, that the department heads could talk to those employees and give them that information that, yes, this is a policy we're going to, but we want to help you because people that smoke know it's not good for them. They know it.
Well, there's luckily the Lung Association, they have a work site free, tobacco free. They have a packet, and it's actually the template for everything that we would need, the education piece, and if this body decided that they wanted to do that, yes, we would have to do some education and training to make sure. We've also got to be mindful. What really prompted this now is because I started getting complaints from employees who were non-smokers saying, I don't get 3 and 4 paid breaks a day. And so then when you start saying that, of that being fair and unfair, regardless of whether you make it a smoke-free campus, I do think we need to add in the language that if people are going to smoke, that they need to be off the clock. Because it's not fair for those people that are still sitting at their desks working from a productivity standpoint, for people going outside to smoke 2 and 3 times a day. So if the body doesn't decide to do a smoke-free campus, I would like for you to add into the language that smoking must be done off the clock, or vaping, or whatever tobacco uses you're doing. So that is some language that I would like added in.
So let me get this straight all totally. So all buildings would be smoke-free. All parking lots, such as
Parking garage,
so the
county property.
jail area down there, that would be all smoke-free?
We would probably need to ask the jail, they allow smoking, don't they, in the jail? Do they allow smoking in the jail?
Not
Designated area in the back.
You have
Have
designated,
areas.
but are the, your inmates, detainees allowed to smoke in the designated area? No, so there's no smoking for,
Well, hard to control 900 and something.
well, no, but I meant, you know what I meant. that,
Yeah.
you know what I meant.
I'm talking about the employee.
Apologize, I didn't ask the sheriff's office that question. Designated
Designated
area. So
areas.
right now, everybody has a designated
Yeah, that's what
area
I'm going by.
within 25 feet of the building.
But we would do away with those designated areas.
If this body and the elected officials all
And-
decided they wanted that in their organization,
So
yes.
anything we have, we do away with designated areas.
Well, as far as us, I consider us a county building. We're not, I mean, we don't own the building, so
Yeah.
as far as I say, whatever the county decides, and we can
I mean, obviously, the elected officials can have their own policy, so that's why I say if they, this would be for all other, but any of the elected officials that opted into the policy.
Would it include the courthouse, standing outside?
And we would have to advertise, because it wouldn't just be for the employees. I mean, you would make it just like the state capitals is smoke-free. You can't smoke on the state capitol's grounds. You can't smoke. Just because you don't go to school doesn't mean that as a parent you can smoke at the school, or as a visitor you can't smoke. It is a no smoking campus. So we would be just following the suit of what the Board of Education did in 2007.
That's how the hospital is. Doesn't matter who you are.
So, how do you enforce this, and what's the punishment?
Well, that's where I said there's several different avenues that the state uses. Their citations, and I'm not advocating for us citing our employees. Obviously, they're, elected officials, and the directors will be responsible for communicating.
When we put in a policy and procedure manual?
Yes, this would be an update to the handbook. So that would be, but if you start looking at what would it mean for the public, that would be a little bit deeper discussion. I don't know if you start with the employees and move to the public later. I'm not, either way, I'm not opposed. This is more of just what, for the employee handbook, not as much for the public as it is for everybody else. So I think that would be what this body decides they want to do.
Commissioner P., Chair recognizes you.
I just had a quick question. Y'all keep saying smoke-free, you mean tobacco-free?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's smoke,
dip
vape,
or
no
chew.
dipping, no.
Smokeless is in here as well.
Okay, and one other thing I want to mention, and Jeff did a better job
Here,
explaining. Where I work, if you are a non-smoker, you get a break on your payment for your insurance. And there's a lot of different people do that, or places that do that. Jeff might be able to explain that better if he wanted to, so. But that might be something you want to consider.
Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this committee ought to deal with this topic first and then do some discussion on if there is another step.
Yep.
If we get into discussion on this right now, you'll get jumbled up. And the difference between a work-free, a smoke-free work environment and some type of a discount for tobacco-free are two different topics. But I'd like to address that after the committee finishes the discussion on this.
Okay. Commissioner Gurley.
Yes, I would like to see whatever's done. I think it'd be more palatable if it was done in a phased-in environment. For example, January 1st, we make all Rutherford County smoke-free campus, then we would take a year. And during that year, we train, we educate, and provide all those resources, because those people, it is an addictive thing. It's like any other drug. It is a drug. It's like any other drug. You don't get off of a drug without help. And so there needs to be some time for those employees to take advantage of the resources that the county will provide. And so that, like I said, if we implemented, say January 1st or December 1st or whatever, then 1 year later, we would truly be a smoke-free campus. But I think just implementing and then saying, okay, you can, but you're going to be chastised if you don't is really a bad policy for our employees.
Mr. Pigg?
Commissioner Gurley is correct back there. I know MTSU has done this. They've gone to a smoke-free or tobacco-free campus. And I know for a good while, they didn't strongly enforce it because of the fact that it was hard to do. When you got 23,000 out there and they're leaving class, and they just left the biology class with extreme tests, you'll see them coming out there right fast. And it's hard to enforce that because they're walking from this class to that class, and what do you do and how to do it. So they've worked for a good while of educating. I mean, their first little bit of that was in education and trying to get it done correctly. And I think as a county here, we're going to have to do that too. Because when I look at, I look at our patrolmen and what they're involved in, and a lot of them use that as a relief at sometimes. And then our emergency responders, that's sometimes a relief that they use too. But what I'm saying is you can't just go, I guess in smoking you call it what, cold turkey? And we're talking everybody, you got to do this all at one time. I think we're going to have to do a lot of education to get this straight and get it right. But I like the idea of saying, we want to do this, but give us time to work with it and educate. No, I see no problem with it at all. You keep talking about the hospital and what they're. I just noticed at the hospital, as soon as I walk out the front door, I have to hold my breath a lot of times because there's somebody standing out there smoking, because I'm somewhat allergic to cigarette smoke myself, and I have to deal with that. So, I have no problem with it. I mean, when you get to this, I think it's important we look at this and go in a healthy way about it.
Well, I would not advocate for them going cold turkey, first of all. I don't think that would help us from a customer service standpoint. But I would advocate that if somebody is wanting to quit, there are the things that they can continue to receive the nicotine, which is, like the Nicoderm patch or the gum, the Nicorettes. There's also some lozenges that are cough drops. There's some things like that. So, I think it would take us, even once this body, whenever you decide what it is you want to do, it would take us probably, several months to educate all of our employees. And we're bringing it, I was bringing it before you. Obviously, once we decide, I would want the county attorney, Nick, to review the policy to make sure that something's not misworded in the wrong way, but just wanted to put this in front of you tonight. So I agree. I wouldn't want somebody to quit cold turkey. That'd be really hard. So.
Commissioner Rather?
What do you think if we did happen to vote on this tonight or next month, and this kind of goes along with Commissioner Gurley and Commissioner Reed, I guess everybody's, that we put this into place like January 1st of 2021. You've got a little more than a year, and people know that year's coming. They may take steps themselves. I'm not going to be able to smoke, so I need to do something. But that does give them time to get used to it, and then any new hires between now and then, it's in the policy, so they can get used to it.
I wish I'd gone back and looked. In 2009, that's when we did the 25 feet from the door. We implemented that, and we did a smoking cessation program at that time, offered it up. We had classes. We had CNF come in and do classes, I think for about 12 weeks. I'd have to go back and look. So we did something very similar when the state and the federal government started implementing their programs, but I don't remember how much time. Whatever you guys decide is what I'll do. I just wanted to put that in front of you just to say, hey, and just even if whatever timeline we put in, I am recommended that at a minimum we change our current policy to say they must be off the clock.
Yeah, I would support
Okay, so I don't think that that's fair to the non-smokers at a minimum, but I would really advocate.
To the taxpayer.
Right. So.
Well, if I can interject on that, we looked at that based on the average. And commissioners, if they do a 15-minute break 4 times a day, we're looking at 268 hours a year per employee. So you can imagine how much money that is
Yeah.
that we're saving. And let me also add too that this is, it's a little bit, I want to touch on it. Vaping is going to be the next major problem we face. Right now, kids are doing it in Rutherford County, based on a study we did. It's around 6 out of 10. Now, of all the studies I've done on addiction, the two of the main ones that are always involved is smoking and alcohol. And I think Commissioner Rather was talking about back in the 50s where smoking was cool and everybody advertised it. I think we're back to that. And I think we're seeing a whole lot. I think if this commission takes steps, we can start, I think we could not only save lives, but save money and also have a better workplace for everybody. So, is there any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
I think we're all fairly well in agreement that we want the time that's coming off the clock, want that placed within there. And then as far as removing it from the workplace totally, I think we're sort of got an agreement here. We need to go a little bit slowly on that, but we want to do it. That's what I'm seeing. I don't know, Sonia, are you wanting to go sooner than 2021, or?
If you told me I had to give up chocolate today, I'd probably need a year. So I'll just put it in that terms, you know, that is my
So
my nicotine
2021
of
might
choice.
be the better term.
I mean, I would rather we move it up sooner than later, like have in like a 1 or 2 month education piece, and then give a couple of months to get into this, you know, with smoking cessation and find out how long it would take us to put something like that in place. I think I would like for you to give us some recommendations, and then let me go back and get how long
Come
it will
back.
take to do everything. I just didn't know which path to go exactly down. So I'd rather you give me kind of an idea of what you would like, and then I could go back and say, what did we do when we implemented this in 2.9 with the 25 feet? How long did we give? What programs did we put? And then come up with a policy with Nick's assistance and guidance, and then bring that back to you and say, this, okay, this is what we came up, this is how long it'll take, this is, and then get all the ball rolling for that. I can even go ahead and create the materials to show you what it would look like, the training packet and stuff.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think we're just,
I mean, I'm sorry, Commissioner Irvin.
Yeah, I say, you know, just pull the Band-Aid off quick, you know. I mean, a year is way too long, you know, and waiting a year is like we're not really serious about it. We're just kind of thinking about it, tossing the idea around. I'd say cut it down maybe to 6 months, March of 2020 or April of 2020, somewhere around there, and just start implementation, you know. Each department head can do their own policy and procedures. The only problem I see is what about the people, like we have clients that come in for treatment, would that include them too?
Well, this policy would only be employees. This is the employee handbook, and if the steering committee decided to make the whole county smoke-free for citizens and everybody, that's a whole different discussion. This is only for the employees.
I'd say just go ahead and do it. I mean, you know, I mean, that's almost a year and a half, you know, 2021. And I'd say if we're going to do it, pull the Band-Aid off now, go ahead and implement it, get the policies and procedures out, and let them know we're serious about it, and we're going to enforce it.
Is that in a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we do it within the next 6 to 7 months.
Mr. Irvin made a motion to implement this in the next 6 months. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Cush. Commissioner Cush.
Are we open for discussion now?
Yes,
Or
sir.
do we need to vote on it first?
Does that include taking
We discussed that.
Okay.
off the clock in there?
I think Commissioner Irvin, I would believe he's talking about implementing all things that, is that what you're
It's
asking?
going to take forever to get the policies and procedures out.
Education, yeah.
You know, and then I think it's up to the directors of each department to call a meeting and tell their employees that, it's going to, April 1st, 2020 will be a smoke-free campus. And,
So if I understand, you're making a motion to implement this policy
yes,
within the next 6 months?
6 to 7 months, yes.
And that's
Okay.
a smoke-free campus.
And do we have a second? Commissioner, discussion.
But do you want to include the
They do leave to smoke.
that they're off the clock?
Yes, yeah, that's-
Off the clock.
Okay.
I think that's part of the original motion, or original discussion. So my question to Sonia is, do you think that's a fair timeframe? That would basically be
I think so. So,
January, March.
so we've got
Or
open
7
enrollment,
months.
so I was trying to think through as we were discussing this, open enrollment's in October, and people would make their selections from healthcare. That would give us time to, I would think within 3 months I could get, and then January, hit the ground running. That would give us, if we did, training, and because we'll have to take this before the full commission too, so give us time to get the training materials together and all of that ready to hopefully roll it out in January, and then maybe effective July 1 with the new fiscal year that it's a smoke-free. So that would give us enough time. That would give us 9 months to get it situated, to get the training done, and start a new fiscal year off with smoke-free. That's what I was kind of thinking. Unless I find something in my research that just says that that's an unachievable goal, I think we could do
Okay.
it.
Well, I think Commissioner Irvin was throwing the 1st of April out. But what I think I just heard you say, that may not be enough time. You're talking about mid-year.
Well, I'm saying that effective July 1, the reason why I said that is because I'm going to have to create the training materials that all the departments are going to use, and
Okay.
I work really hard, but
All right. So maybe April 1 would be an immediate campaign that this is no April Fool's.
that we
That
release. Right.
this is serious.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
Okay. And then
April 1st is roll out the education
Yeah.
piece for an effective date of July 1.
And no.
Oh.
Follow me.
Okay.
July 4th would be celebrate your independence. Effective July 4th, we're going to an absolute, draw the line in the sand, no a smoke-free campus. So celebrate your independence from smoking.
Very creative.
Is there any more discussion? We have a motion to implement this policy for July 4th. We have a second.
May I interject? Sorry, real quick, just to get things, so one, I know it wasn't asked, but it's probably better to do it July 5th so that there's no confusion, because July 1st is a holiday. That would just be my legal suggestion. Generally, when we're counting days, they don't recognize holidays like that. And then 2, it sounds like that was maybe an amendment to the original motion. And if it is, then you need to second and vote on that first before you vote on the original motion.
Did you amend it? Was that you amending it? Just tweaking it?
Yeah.
I have Commissioner Irvin doing a motion and Commissioner Cush seconding.
Was his original motion have a date or a time?
It was a fluid motion. It wasn't
Okay,
really.
withdraw my motion.
No, I'll just
No.
add, I'll just amend.
Let's do this. We got an amendment, we need to make an amendment. So is there an amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to amend the motion to have shoot for a target date of April 1st. Sonia, help me, as a rollout date, and a July 5th as a hard date for smoke-free campus, or tobacco-free campus, tobacco /
Do I have a second?
Second.
nicotine-free, whatever you want to call it,
And off the clock.
Off the clock.
and off
Make
the
sure
clock.
that's in
Yeah. make sure.
Okay.
Is the off-the-clock portion effective now, or is that effective then?
Well, that is a good, we could do the off the clock now.
Let me withdraw.
With our
Take
current-
off the clock and let's vote on this one and then come back and let's do the off the clock.
Are you pulling your original motion?
No, we have an amendment to the motion. By Commissioner Kush.
Becky, do you think he needs to pull it, or can we just
Well,
simply amend it?
I think
just
it'd be
amend it.
cleaner if you
Just
did
amend
it.
Just amend it.
Just amended.
So we have an amendment. We'd have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rather. We need to vote. All those in favor of the amendment, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, the amendment is now with the original motion. So,
Could we make,
yes, now we have to vote on we have to vote on the original motion. So with the amended, so it's going to be that we start to implement the policy April 1st with a hard date of July 5th. All those in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Great first day.
I would like to request, Commissioner Stevens had a great idea of going ahead and implementing the off the clock now, once it goes through the next commission, based on our current policy that we have. Just updating that one, hold on, where's my packet? The original, just to add in that this must be done, not only is it outside, 25 feet outside the door, but it's also off the clock. Could we do that effective now?
Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
Make a motion, that is your vote.
And a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rather.
Yes.
Just a little discussion on
Discussion.
that. Should you, I know we want to do it now, but shouldn't you run it by department heads and other elected officials and other departments and other personnel before we just go ahead
I
and...
think that'd all be for it, because I mean, we're gonna have employees step out the door every 45 minutes, take a smoke break. Other people, and then they stay 15 to 20 minutes later trying to finish their work.
The only thing I'm concerned about with doing it, it don't make no difference, Julie. But you got a person that's got a habit of smoking. And we're gonna tell this person, even though you got this habit and you addicted to smoking, we want you to stop right now.
All they gotta do is clock out.
He can still go smoke, he's still
It's gotta be off the clock.
He's not gonna get
It may
paid.
not be able to be off the clock, it all depends on how much his habit is.
I don't think the county should pay for somebody to go outside and stand for 10 or 15 minutes smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's time wasted and a waste of taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah, we're not removing their ability to the way it is now. It's just that they'd be off the clock. So what's happening is it's causing some problems in the departments for people who don't smoke. And then when their supervisor goes to them and says, "Why are you doing X, Y, Z?" "I'm on my smoke break." It's just causing some
I can see
problems.
what you're trying to do, but the reason I say all departments, and it's one department I'm concerned about, and that's the sheriff department. I'm gonna tell the sheriff department, you're gonna tell your employees that you got to be off the clock when you smoke. I don't, and we got to implement this right now. But I see that being a problem. It may not be that we got the sheriff here, but I don't see that flying Monday morning, but
Well, they're a little bit different, yeah.
I'll tell you my opinion, you can't regulate supervision,
that's right.
and that's what you're trying to do.
Well, but for the correctional facilities, the sheriff's office, correctional work center, JDC, they don't clock out because they have to be on call all the time, so they don't clock out for lunch. They don't clock out for lunches or anything. That's under federal guidelines because they have to be on the clock and ready to go. It's more the administrative offices, for lack of a better way to say it. It doesn't, it would not have the same, I would think, I'm just guessing here, and the sheriff can correct me if I'm wrong, if he had somebody that was going out to smoke all the time and they need to be in there watching the inmates, there's going to be another discussion because they've left their post. I would guess that would be the answer.
That's abandoned post.
And so I think this is going to apply really more to, because they're going to have that at the Correctional Work Center, JDC, and the Sheriff's Office. They're not going to be able to abandon their post to go out to smoke. Now, if they're on their, taking a lunch break or quick break, that's a different different thing.
What about EMS?
They're saying they're
What
public
if they
safety.
respond to a crash or something and they're out there working 24 hours or whatever, and all of us know that time is involved in a lot of those. I'm gonna tell them, can't smoke unless you're off the clock.
They're under the same guidelines as the public safety. They're on call for response all the time. They don't ever clock out, ever.
They don't clock in.
They're on clock. Once they
So-
come in, they're on clock.
Yeah. So it's a different for those public safety departments. This is really more administrative departments. It's building codes, HR, risk management, the mayor's office, IT, finance. It's really,
Okay, what I'm getting at then, it should
so we
be-
need to change the language to say that.
We should change the language and be more specific.
We're paying the same.
Well, what I would like to do, with this body's permission, Nick and I discussed it, with these pointers, he and I work on the current policy to bring back to the steering committee, the current policy, to bring back to the steering committee about being off the clock with your supervisor's permission to the next meeting so that he could get a resolution and everything ready if it should be passed to go through to full commission. In the meantime, we'll also work on the policies and the procedures for implementing the smoke-free campuses
Which we'll try to get back next steering committee
as well.
We can get both of them done. So that way y'all can look at it and fully consider it and vote on it to recommend it to county commission.
Are there any other points, that's, a great point that Commissioner McAdoo, sometimes we just know things and we don't, think about that.
I have it to add to the current policy. Anyone smoking must do so off the clock.
Sonia,
Go ahead.
More something like
we have employees that literally punch a time clock or clock in somehow electronically or on a time clock or something.
all of our,
But then you have some employees that they really don't clock in or clock out. They're salaried.
no, everybody clocks in
Everybody
except the
clocks
elected
in and
official.
clocks out. Okay.
All employees clock in now.
Well, you think about the EMS, maybe a slow day, and what are they doing? They may be doing some training, they may be washing the truck, restocking the truck.
Restocking it.
Whatever. But are there times where, and I know this probably doesn't happen in the sheriff's office, I'm talking about EMS, could it be that they're just sitting around talking outside? In between calls, truck stocked, ready to go?
Maybe.
So it's not, if they went outside and smoked, is it costing us the loss of productivity because they're outside smoking, as opposed to the person that's on the clock, that clocks in and out, going outside, we're losing that productivity.
I think what we have to
See the
implement is, which Nick and I will look at, is what the Fair Labor Standards Act rules are, because that's really what we're talking about. Those people who have to clock in, clock out. There are rules in there for firefighters, for paramedics, EMTs, law enforcement. That's under the Fair Labor Standards Act, and that's really what we're talking about. When I call them administrative positions, I'm talking about the office positions where, for example, in my office, or across the county, if you leave your desk and your workspace to do anything that's other than county business, if they want to get in their car and go down to Popeyes and get a chicken biscuit, they're not going to do it on the clock. I'm not allowing it because that's, so it's kind of that scenario. It's a little bit different when we start getting into our public safety people. It's a whole different animal, so we'll have to carve that out to make sure the language doesn't say so that they don't say. But that's one of the things that we will bring back to you. But
I would
that is,
suggest us rewording it, get the language right, and bring it back
That's-
for the next steering committee.
that's what we'll do. We'll do that for you.
We have a motion on the floor for Commissioner Reed, second by Commissioner Rather, to add current policy. Anyone smoking must clock out. Is there any discussion?
So is that effective after the commission passes it, or is that going to be effective, or will we bring it back next month to look at it
That's
again?
going to be
We're bringing it
effective
back next month.
next month.
Well, that's not what the motion was.
So
we
is
just
that
read.
amendment?
I'm not offering, I'm trying to understand what we're voting on. So what we just read was that we're
There's a
making it
motion on the
effective.
floor.
That was the original motion.
Yes.
Well, I'm here now, we're bringing it back. So,
Should we withdraw the motion until you bring it back?
We,
Right.
I mean, it's-
I withdraw the motion.
Commissioner Reed withdraws his motion. Commissioner Rather? Your second, you withdraw your second?
Yeah.
Withdraw your second. All right, let's move on.
But she'll bring a policy back.
Next month, Sonia, you bring the stuff back here next month for the next steering committee.
Yes, sir, I will.
Thank
Both things that were.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add
Commissioner
a little
Phillips.
bit to this, if I could, it would be recognized while Sonia's still here. There's another whole topic that would take a long time for this committee to discuss, but this is where it belongs, is in the steering committee. The whole topic of smoking is extremely emotional when it comes to people who smoke. It pisses them off when you tell them that they can't do something. So how this thing is implemented is going to be really, really important. The other part of that is all the people who don't smoke, and there's a majority of them now, get really, really pissed off because they feel like that they're having to do extra things. So it's an emotional issue, and how this committee addresses that is going to be real important. My topic, like Commissioner P said earlier, deals with the whole medical issue that's tied to smoking. I've been removed from it for a number of years, but the percentages that I remember was somewhere between 40 and 60% that people who smoke are subjecting themselves and their families to health care issues that non-smoking families do not. And it's about 40%. That means that those people who do smoke, the likelihood of them having a medical procedure because of that smoking is 40 to 60% higher. So that means that as we as an employer, our insurance rates go up because of those medical procedures, since we're self-insured. What I would suggest is that Sonia bring some of our carriers in, our medical carriers in, and discuss the issue of smoking and how that affects a person's health. What we did as a private company was give a rebate to employees and employees' families who were smoke-free. And you know, you can bring all this stuff up about how do you enforce it and that kind of crap. The way I enforced it was pretty simple. You told me, and I took you at your word. And if you ever lied to me one time, you would never lie to me again. It was pretty simple. And as a matter of fact, it was so effective that we had an employee come in one time and said, my 14-year-old, I caught her smoking. You need to take me off the policy because I don't want you to fire me. And I chuckled and said I wouldn't do that. But all we did was withdraw their affidavit as a smoke-free family. So it was pretty easy to implement, but I had a small number of employees compared to the spread out number of employees. But I would look at cost associated to employee benefits for smokers and non-smokers and see if there's a way that we could, as a company, as an employer, that we could do something as it related to contributions to our medical care plan. And it wouldn't be easy to do, but I do think that if we're talking about making smoke-free work environments, that it may be something that when a person says, well, I'm going to go from 30% contribution up to a 50% contribution because I smoke, would be a further incentive to quit smoking. And medically, I think we'd be on pretty strong grounds if we got those statistics from our carriers. So I would suggest that, Sonia, over the next few months, that that this committee begin to talk about those types of things as to what do we do? What do we do to offset some of the costs that the county is incurring because someone smokes? So it's just something I think that the county ought to take a look at. And once again, it's not an easy thing to do, and it's something that would hack a lot of people off. But I also personally think that it's something that at least needs to be discussed. Just like this smoke-free work environment needs to be discussed. And I know there's wrinkles to be worked out, but if we can get some good, solid information, especially from our carrier, that these are the cost comparisons, and I think we can kind of go from there. It would be, I think, an enlightening situation for us to kind of go through that. And once again, it wasn't, we didn't make a big deal out of it where I worked, other than saying, this is what you pay if you're a smoker or one of your dependents that's on our plan is a smoker, and this is what you pay if you don't. And we saw a tremendous drop in the people who use tobacco and their families. And I mean a tremendous drop in 1 year. So the pocketbook spoke really, really loud when it came to that. Plus, we also saved our company a ton of money.
Is that information you can get, Sonia?
I've already got it.
Okay, good.
I talked to Cigna and to see, and the number one illnesses that the county has, our employee population has, asthma, COPD, diabetes, they said is linked, hypertension. Those are our top complications. This was a survey that was completed. Only 2,551 of our 6,000 participants participated, so only 30% participated in this. But of the 30% that participated, 6% of them were smokers. So when we put the data in there, it ended up being that around 14 to 18% of our total population probably smoked. And that's where I came up with the number with the 209. So I can get you the hard, fast numbers, what it costs from a claims. I don't have that part, but I just have the percentage. So I did.
I think the validity of bringing Cigna and medical provider in, just to give that, would strengthen our resolve as it related, whether we want to do something about that or not.
Okay.
And once again, it's not something that you decide one month. It's something that you discuss and educate for a long period of time. It may be something that you want to implement January 2021. Okay, it may not be something you want to do the first of the year, or it could be something that could be out there for a year and a half, just to get people accustomed to what's coming.
I'd be interested too. I'll go back and check and see what the state did when they implemented theirs to make the schools and all of that as well. So I'll get all that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, to our next agenda, appointment of Select Infrastructure Committee. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Cush.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. Now that we have the new standing committees selected, once we have the chairs and vice chairs picked at our next full commission meeting, we will then fill the remaining vacancies on that committee, and we'll have our first meeting in September. Just so you know, this steering committee involvement is not about member selection, but where steering can be very vital is at the end of the year in December or early January, as possible solutions are presented to full commission in December. Should full commission want to act or have a voice with our legislators, perhaps steering can help bring those two parties together, or we make a trip to Nashville and have a sit down and ask for some assistance. So that's where steering can play a big part. But
Commissioner Cush, I have 2 applicants.
Yes.
For your infrastructure.
Yes.
So do we have a motion to approve them?
We don't need to do that here at steering. This is not steering's responsibility. The chair committees I hope those committees have that responsibility, and I understand the road board has already selected Paul Johnson as a member, so congratulations, Paul Johnson. Planning meets Monday night, so we will try and get 2 from planning appointed Monday night. And then when budget meets after full commission and appoints their chair and vice chair, we would like to get somebody then recommended and appointed by that committee. So
we got 2 on planning, 2 on road, 1 on budget.
we have two on planning, 2 on public works, and 1 on road. And one on budget. And Phil Dodd has sent an application in, and he's on both budget and public works, so he'll get the nod from either one committee or the other. So Paul Johnson and Phil Dodd are a shoe-in. Just not sure what committee Phil's going to get appointed from. Thank you. That concludes my update. But September will be our first meeting.
All right, let's get to our next
We do
agenda.
have a full slate of options already on the discussion.
Our next on the agenda is the appointment of judicial commissioners. We have Jacob, it should be in his mailbox, we have Jacob Flatt, Keena Deal, Suzanne Kaufman, Amy Anderson. We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve these 3.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. All right, I need to make some announcements. We have a BZA vacancy for Gary Farley. I'd like to announce a vacancy on the beer board, Jerry Sartan, and 1 alternate, Mike DeFeer. I'd like to announce 2 vacancies on the Code Enforcement Adjustments and Appeals Board of Glenn Taylor and Joe Machado. And our next agenda is we want to discuss the duties of the Chairman Pro Tem. And I'd like to have Commissioner Phillips come up. And I have this is what he's going to be talking on. And I've also pulled up some off our bylaws on what the duties of the Chairman Pro Tem are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been Chairman Pro Tem for a number of years, and actually in our handbook, there really are no roles and responsibilities spelled out for the Chairman Pro Tem. It's just been something that has been understood in the way of a few assignments that the Chairman Pro Tem has. And I'm not even 100% sure what we need to do to change those roles and responsibilities. And our county attorney, I think, will be able to give us some input there as we research it. I also think that Commissioner Stevens has done a lot of work on some of these things too, and can have some really good input. I'm not sure what you've got in front of you, but it looks like I've misspelled Pro Tem and put Pro Temp there, and that's the way my spell check changed that. So I didn't catch that when I printed these things off, so I apologize for that. But I do think, in light of the way our county's growing and the way the commission is viewing things, that we probably ought to at least have a discussion on those roles and responsibilities, and maybe some of the things that a pro tem, the Chairman Pro Tem, could do to take some pressure and heat off of maybe what the Chairman of the Commission is doing. It appears that in statute, at least the ones that I've looked at, the Chairman Pro Tem has the same duties and roles and responsibilities as the Chairman of the Commission, but only in the Chairman's absence. And those are the roles that I've found that or the responsibilities of the chairman pro tem. And as I go through these things, these are just thoughts. We can do anything or we can do nothing. And all of it's going to be fine with me. But as I've kind of gone through this over the last few years, I've hesitated about bringing this up because I didn't want anyone to think that I'm in a power grab situation. I'm not. I'll say that if we change this position significantly, I'm not sure that I want the chairman pro tem position. And if we do have a lot of changes and we implement those, let's say at a certain time, the first of the year or something like that, I would be really receptive to stepping aside and electing a new chairman pro tem. This isn't about me, okay? This is about what I think that could benefit the commission as we kind of go forward. One of the thoughts that I have would be for the chairman pro tem to be an ex officio member of each commission committee. Why? Because we've had 2 vacancies on the county commission. One of them was an extremely important position that served on our budget committee that was vacant for several months during budget time of the year, and that budget committee only had 6 members. And I just think it would have been real important if we had somebody that we could have assigned to that position. I think it's an appropriate response for the chairman pro tem to be an ex officio member and fill absences as needed, whether they're illness or medical, or whether they're by resignation or something like that. The chairman pro tem could fill that vacancy on a short-term basis. And I also think that compensation, I don't care, one way or the other. I do think that from some things that I remember, the chairman is an ex officio member of each committee right now, and it's an unpaid position. But they also don't have any votes. I think it's something that we ought to at least talk about. If we had a vacancy, what if someone had a stroke and they were going to be out for a number of months? How do we fill that position? And I just think it's an excellent opportunity for the chairman pro tem to step up and fill that vacancy until that commissioner can come back to work, or that the commission can select a new person to fill that short-term interim type of assignment. A couple of things that I think the pro tem ought to do is review the agenda, proposed agenda by the chairman, and can make some recommendations. And also what we do right now is review the minutes and make a presentation to the commission. There's just a couple of other things that we're probably doing a little bit of right now. And that, as far as the minutes, are doing exclusively like that. This is another thought that kind of came to my mind. I know it's in our bylaws where the steering committee makes assignments, but Commissioner Stevens made a point about like in state government, the Speaker of the House or the leader of that particular House or Senate makes committee recommendations. And I'm not advocating this, but it's just a thought where the chairman pro tem could receive all of the applications from instead of the steering committee chairman receiving those, that the chairman pro tem would get them, share them with the chairman of steering, and make a joint recommendation. In essence, the chairman pro tem would make a recommendation, give that to the steering committee, and let the steering committee make a decision one way or the other. Once again, that's not a big deal with me, but it could add since the chairman pro tem is elected by the commission, could add a lot of validity to nonpartisan assignments.
But this would just be, it'd be a recommendation.
That's right.
Okay.
No, it would absolutely positively be a recommendation by statute and our rules and our handbook rules and responsibilities. It is the steering committee's responsibility to make those assignments. So it wouldn't be circumventing that, but it'd just be adding an additional level. Once again, that's something you can throw out, and I don't care. I really don't. But it's just something I think probably as we go forward into the future, we ought to be thinking about how can we do things or make things better. In light of some of the things that have happened over the last month, I would suggest that the chairman pro tem call all of the newly elected committee members. If the budget committee came in this room, that the chairman pro tem would call that committee to order for the election of chair and vice chair. Because there is no chairman, there is no vice chairman, and what we've been doing is just somebody just takes charge and does that. I think a lot of people may think it's the chairman that should be doing that, but the chairman would have to vacate the chair in order to come in here and do that, in my mind, so why do that? So it would be just something insignificant, but make it a little bit more valid in my mind. The door's open, come in, and the chairman pro tem would call the meeting to order just for the election of the chair and the vice chair. Be done with it. And then another thing, when we have an executive session, I think the chairman pro tem should be involved in the discussion of what's going to take place at that executive session before it happens, along with the mayor or the chairman. Mayor, chairman, and chairman pro tem. Just a few things. And I know that there's others. So these are things that I would just suggest that this committee chew on for the next several months. And pros and cons. And once again, if things need to stay the way they are, I'm 100% fine with that. But I do think that we could make this position a little bit more meaningful by adding to roles and responsibilities. And I think we'd also have to bounce off of our county attorney, of course, anything we wanted to make a change because there are some guidelines that the state puts together, but I'm not 100% sure that we have to go to the state. I'm not also sure that we don't have to as well. I'm not sure that any of this stuff is enacted by our private act. I just don't know. But I think a discussion of roles and responsibilities are kind of in order.
Anybody?
And I know Robert's had some ideas that was really good, and I also think that Commissioner Allen has had some ideas that were pretty good, and I think that all of those need to be kind of discussed. Whether we start small and add to it as time goes by is fine and dandy, okay? And once again, if there are huge changes that really changes the makeup of this position, it's maybe not something that this commissioner wants, okay? But I'm more than happy to do these types of things, at least for the next year. And I'll just go ahead and tell you that none of these things are any type of a power grab on my part, because this commissioner will not seek, nor will he accept, the chairman pro tem position for next year, okay?
Any discussion?
I've got a few questions. When you say ex officio member of each committee, would that be a voting member?
I would say if he feels a vacancy, he or she feels a vacancy, that, yeah, that they'd be a voting member.
So only if there wasn't the full,
That's right,
but otherwise they could be recognized on each committee and,
if need be. That, I don't really see a need for the chairman pro tem to do a lot on committees other than a vacancy. If someone's just going to be absent for one meeting, it's not a big deal. It never has been, and I don't think it is now. But there have been a couple of incidences where we've had vacancies that have lasted for several months.
well, I'm going to disagree with that slightly. I think our chairman pro tem should be very involved with the committee process and know what's going on with all the committees, because if something happens to the mayor, that person becomes our leader now. And if they don't know what's going on and aren't familiar with all the issues, that could really be a stumbling block for us, so.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm not, but if you're wanting this chairman pro tem to attend every meeting, you're walking up the
And I'm
line.
not sure that that's the expectation, but that's, to me, if that person's going to become the acting mayor, they need to be engaged and know what's going on and have a really good understanding of all the issues.
I don't disagree with that.
And that could be a problem with any that takes that position.
Well, I'm agreeing with what Commissioner Stevens is saying to a degree, but to another degree, you know, the mayor doesn't have to attend every commission meeting, doesn't have to. Mayor Allen did not. Mayor Burgess did. And I'm not so sure that anything is good or bad, but I do think that the chairman pro tem should know what's going on, but as a requirement to attend every meeting, or I don't necessarily agree with that. But once again, this person is a member of the commission itself, so I think all of us need to know what's going on in every committee. That's the reason we have that structure, so that we can get more business done, I think. But I don't disagree with what you're saying, Robert, and that's the reason that I've just put it on there for us to discuss it, okay?
Well, there's some things, I agree with Commissioner Stevens. We need to be more prepared for the next meeting. I think, Nick, you need to let us know what we need to do as far as county attorney. Commissioner Stevens, you need to let us know what you want to do as far as going to meetings, what your idea, what you think a chairman pro tem should be doing. And I think we should continue this discussion, but as far as me, I think there's a lot of things we need to know. And a lot of open factors right there, so.
I'm not sure what all you passed out, but there's a number of things that relate to the chairman pro tem's job, but most of it is all through what the chairman of the commission does.
Yes.
So it really doesn't define certain roles and responsibilities, but I just think that these are some things that would not be hard to do and would be a step at least to add to those roles and responsibilities that could be altered, you know, as time goes by, year after year. So, two things. I've just had these thoughts over the last several years that the chairman pro tem could do more. And I've also had a fear that someone would think that Jeff Phillips is going for a power grab, and I'm not. But I do think that we've grown to the point where the chairman pro tem could pick up some roles and responsibilities that he or she doesn't have right now. And these are just thoughts that were in my mind. So do something or do nothing, and I'm okay with it, all right?
Yeah, I think one idea that you had in there that I think is a really good idea, and it comes from all of this we've had this evening, selecting the chairman, vice chairman, whatever. But I know for the 6 years I've come in here of selecting a chairman for a committee or whatever, we've walked in here and they said, okay, who wants to handle the election? And I think every one of you have done this when you come in here to committee, who's going to do that or whatever. I think that would take care of that situation where the chairman pro tem, if he's the one that handles those, that would take care of that. And because I looked some of that up when all this discussion come about, I think better than a quarter century we have been doing it this way. And I mean, that's.
You look at me when you say quarter of a century.
Well, I look at Commissioner McAdoo. He's been here, what, 44? 40? Yeah. Yeah. In fact, they were looking for you last night. You wasn't at the TCAS meeting. I mean, you've been a regular there.
Oh, I know I've been a regular, but I had a
But I think that's a pretty good idea there of what we could do with that. But that's I just know the first time I ever walked in here, everybody stood here and said, okay, who's going to be our chairman to elect the chairman? And I think you understand that too, what we've done there. So I think that's a pretty good idea. Mr. Chairman, something like this right here, we could sit here all night and go through this. This would possibly be something that you might want to do with a study committee to go through this and get some idea. Commissioner Stevens has done a lot of thought and study into this himself. Our current pro tem has done that, and then you might want to pull somebody from some of the other from other committees, and just have a small study committee to go over some of this, to come up with some ideas to give to our county attorney to see where we go from there. What we do change, because I know we just can't come up and say we're going to change something, because some of the stuff does, I don't want to say stuff, but some of the regulation we have here could change our handbook. It could change, we don't want to go against something that's against the Tennessee Code Annotated. We don't want to do any of that. So I think if we had a study committee that was maybe appointed by the chairman to work with this. I mean, like I said, we could sit here all night going through some of this, but if they could do that, bring us back that information, and then we can discuss it and see where we go from there.
Is there a motion?
May I interject? Sorry again. We've all done study committees like this before, like in the past. Remember, if you have a committee, two things. If you have the study committee, it's going to have to meet in public, right? You have to have an open meeting. And then two, I wonder if this is going to be a study committee, does the commission just need to approve it?
It needs to be the same type of thing that did last month.
For the infrastructure committee.
It should be a select study committee.
So you could make a motion to recommend that the county commission appoint a study committee comprised of, you could do a vote on who should be nominated here out of the three people as recommended to the county commission, have the county commission approve that next week.
But I would make that motion that we would do that, and I think I've given you three good ones right there.
Commissioner Reed has a motion to,
How many is the limit? You want 5, 7?
I think
Or
5 would be
2
sufficient in what you want to do there.
to be specific on it. So we want to say 5
We need 2
select committee members?
Well, that,
So on your motion, are you wanting to put 5 select?
5 commissioners, yes.
Okay. Commissioner
Would
Reed
that
has a
work?
motion on the table.
Now the steering committee.
Do you want it limited to steering committee members, or are you opening it up to the full commission to do it? If you're just going to limit it to your steering committee, it might be a better practice to make a motion to put in there the 3 of the people here on steering to be appointed as a select committee to investigate this issue in particular.
Well, I would like to include our pro tem.
Okay? You can open it up to, you could make a motion of who you want to appoint. It could
Put on
include
that
Jeff
committee?
Phillips and then 2 other individuals here.
Okay. In that motion right there, I will place Commissioner Stevens.
And I'm going to very respectfully decline to serve on the committee.
Well, if you want to do that, I know you've already done some discussion and work in that. I'll put our chairman on it, Chairman Pro Tem, Commissioner Rather, and Commissioner Irvin.
It's simply a recommendation.
The recommendation, and then I'll put one outside on it, because that's just 4, didn't I? And that ain't 4?
Yes.
And then we'll ask that, I know Commissioner Rhonda Allen has discussed this.
All right, so let me see if we get this right. You have a motion on the floor to commit a select committee, which would consist of a chairman of steering, Chairman Pro Tem Jeff Phillips, Commissioner Rather, Commissioner Irving, and Commissioner Rhonda Allen. Do I have
She will serve.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Irving, second. All those in favor of this, first of all, sorry, discussion?
Yeah, just one comment. I'd like to see the deputy mayor on the committee to kind of get feedback from that branch. I'd like to see the deputy mayor on the committee
The
too.
county mayor is a member of every committee and every subcommittee. He can send a designee by state law.
Yes.
Okay, so
And now you got to remember,
Wouldn't hurt
we're
to
going
name
to
it,
have to
though.
contact Commissioner Allen to see if she will serve.
Well, do you want to form your motion into a recommendation
Yes.
instead? That way we, okay. So your motion is to have a select committee recommendation of the chairman of steering, Chairman Pro Tem, Commissioner Rather, Commissioner Irving, and Commissioner Allen. Is there a second?
Commissioner Irvin.
We have a second.
Second. Any more discussion?
just one more. I'm sorry, Michael.
Okay.
I'd like for some inclination from this committee if it's worth doing. I don't want to spend one more minute I don't want to spend a lot of time if the committee is not inclined to make changes. If we are inclined to make changes, go. If we're not inclined to make changes, we're just wasting my time. And my time, to me, is too valuable. So I'd like some feedback from the committee if we even want to pursue it.
May I interject again? I'm sorry about that. I'm looking at our rules here, and under select committees, it says that no select committee shall be appointed for any purpose when there is a standing committee on the same subject. So y'all might want to think about that moving forward. If this is really within the purview of the steering committee's direction, it might just be up to y'all to go ahead and deal with this now and instead of facing maybe an objection to the formation of a steering committee later.
There's a lot of expertise on this committee, and that's where I would prefer it to be handled.
All right. Mr. Attorney. Commissioner, I'll withdraw that motion then.
Commissioner Reed withdraws. Commissioner Irvin, second to withdraw. All right, motion's off.
But to answer your question, I do think it's worth pursuing. I think having a job description and a list of responsibilities helps the person to know what's expected of them and what the other commissioners should expect out of that person.
Robert, I've listened to some of your ideas and suggestions, and I think a lot of them are dead on as to what needs to happen as we go forward. And that's the reason that I think that it should be handled in this committee. There's a lot of expertise and would be a lot of good input.
I agree, Commissioner Phillips. And I'd like to hear more from Commissioner Stevens, and I'd like to hear more from you on the legalities of this and also more ideas. And we can move this forward to, is there a motion on the table on this matter? No? Move it to next month. Last thing on our list is...
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I ask?
Yeah, sure, Commissioner.
Since he was asking, the one thing that jumps out would be really easy to implement is let the chairman pro tem step in and help with the committee elections for the chair and vice chair. And since we're going to be doing that at our next commission meeting, I would love to see y'all go ahead and do that now. I mean, that's, whatever y'all want to do, but I think that's something we could easily implement. We could vote on it early in the agenda on the commission meeting. And when we go to set up our committees, then we've got something in place where, just like he said, we're not standing there, well, who's going to take the floor since we don't have a chairman. That's something to think about. I mean, y'all have to do that now, but if might simplify things in our next commission meeting.
I have thought extensively about this, and the best practice is going to be whenever the committee meets, the first item on their official agenda is to elect the chairman and the vice chairman. So if you want to make the chairman pro tem the person that calls the meeting to order, then he just needs to plan on coming to all the meetings that month and calling them to order. But to not violate the Open Meetings Act, there needs to be somebody there to take minutes and write down who voted for whom. And so the best way to do that is just going to be at their regular scheduled meeting to have the chairman and the vice chairman elected at the first order of business.
Well, you can still do it right here like we always have done and turn the cameras on. So that would take care of visibility.
Well, is that an advertised meeting of the committee?
It's part of our agenda. As long as it's on the agenda that we're going to do the elections of chairman of these committees, then yes, it is. At least that's my opinion. What about our attorney?
Yeah, is it one aspect you could issue individual notices for each individual committee for that day? I think for notice purposes, a reasonable person would look if you just issued the county commission agenda and you had on there specifically that each committee is meeting, and that under the committee meeting on that agenda item, it specifies that they have on their agenda the election of their officers. So I think one notice that encapsulates all of it to a reasonable person would put them on notice that that's what's going to be discussed in the meeting. The one thing that occurs to me about trying to do a motion now is technically that's not been on the agenda for tonight for any further discussion, and so you wouldn't want an argument to be made that it wasn't properly noticed to move that forward.
Could the commission chairman assign the pro tem that responsibility at our next commission meeting?
The safest way to do that is probably to ask for a vote from the full committee, the full county commission at the beginning of the election process for the various officer selections on the committee, asking that the chairman pro tem be the one to go into the meeting and act as temporary chairman to run the officer elections. That way you've got the approval of the full legislative body. And remember, these rules and regulations, they're within the purview of the legislative body. They can be amended and suspended at any time. So a way to deal with this is before the committees go into the room 205 here, have a motion on the floor to designate the chairman pro tem, assuming that's the body's wish, and have a vote on it.
Everybody's looking at me that this chairman pro tem hasn't been elected yet. And the election comes up early on the agenda at our next commission meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to speak out of turn. The county attorney and the mayor have talked about nipping this in the bud from, even though we've been doing it years past, where any paper or news media or any citizen, we've had them come in here. I was county commissioner for 24 years. They came in and sat down, watched it happen. It's always been open, but to nip it in the bud, I think there was a couple of details that the county attorney was telling the mayor that he could do, and do it right on the floor in there. Not have to go in this room at all, switch the cameras on, switch them off, sound on, sound off, whatever, do it right in there on the floor. Cameras are still on. Put, I think, the commission in recess as far as you can't deliberate back and forth, because that committee is actually getting ready to choose a chairman and a vice chairman. That's all the business is being done that night anyway, as far as the committee's concerned, because there's no agenda. Case closed, it's done and finished and finalized right there in front of the camera, on air, in front of God and everybody else. And it solves the whole problem. You don't have to come in the room. You don't have to switch these cameras on. You don't have to go and recess in there. All you're doing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, county attorney, that...
You can call me Nick. Y'all know me by now. So
Attorney Nick. But then that way, the only thing, there wouldn't be any discussion or deliberation or questions and all that sort of stuff from anybody outside of that committee process that's either standing or not standing. The names are read off, or you just stand, here's the XYZ committee, your motion for a chairman. Any other motions go through your regular process, Robert's Rules of Order, and then vice chairman, and that's it. Then the next committee. It's not in and out of recess.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if
I don't
that
think,
doesn't-
I think either way, it's whether you do it in this room or that room, right? I mean, it's still open, and you still noticed it on your commission agendas. That's what's taking place for those committees. In terms of the internal procedure, that's the whim of the county legislative body. If you want to do it in here, then you can do it in here. If you do it in there, you do it out there. Now, who's going to run the meeting? You could do it as easy as, like Mr. Stevens said, that it just, or I think it was Mr. Reed, just come in here and said, well, who wants to do it, right? But if you want to be a little bit more formal about it, you could have the chairman of the county commission, because he's in a recess, right? The county commission's in recess. Have him come down here and just open up the meeting, make sure there's a quorum, then do the election of officers just like what happened tonight. Another way is for the somebody call for a motion to have the chairman pro tem do it. There's a variety of ways to do it. You're just making sure it's an open, and you're not conducting any other business besides the officer election, which really shouldn't be that big a deal.
We have several months to iron that out, almost a year.
All the committees.
You gonna do it next Thursday?
Next Thursday. You go do it the first time.
Yeah, we do it next week.
So what are the committees doing? They're meeting between,
The old committees are meeting.
the whole committees are meeting?
Except this
There's
one.
only one other one, that's budget, that's tomorrow night.
Thursday night, we have a budget meeting.
So,
That's it. Then you
so
got
the
full
new
commission.
The new
No.
committee will take effect after they're elected.
But the
12.
old committees, their term is up, but they're still meeting, correct?
Not until
it's on.
Not until the new committee is appointed, which will be in September.
Oh, I thought they were up in August, that's why we had, okay. I've been confused. My head's been spinning for 2 or 3 weeks.
Join the club. This has become cumbersome, and it needs to be simple. Whatever that procedure is, it just needs to be simple. And I just thought the way we've been doing it's fine. You leave the doors open, anybody can come in that wants to. Have the cameras on if you want to. Anybody can do it. And I don't think the commission's in recession when that is in recess when that's happening. I think the commission is still called to order.
Well, regardless, if I can, regardless of that, there's a lot of disruption if people leave there and want to come in here and then you go back in there and flipping cameras, microphones. I think in there, out in the open, out in the public, as long as that committee gets to handle their business without, 15 other people interjecting. So I just think that's very simple. Nobody has to get up and move, handle it, get it over with, and move on.
I don't disagree. But once again, I've been doing this for so long in this room here, I never thought about doing it another way.
Well, our problem hasn't been that the meeting is not open. It's been open if people wanted to come in, they could. The problem is we're not taking minutes and writing down who's voting for whom.
No,
That's-
we've always reported it immediately.
But
after they
the
got
open
back.
meetings, any vote taken, you're supposed to make a record of how each person voted. So there's no records on who voted for chairman, who voted for this chairman, who voted for that candidate. We don't have that. And so if we do it here, we just have to have the secretary come in here and write down which people voted for which candidates. So there's a record of the vote.
Or if the chairman pro tem could do that.
Then there just has to be a record of who voted for which candidate.
Most of the time, it's an acclamation type of thing, so it's not a big deal.
So is that a special called meeting, or is that at their regularly
It's not a
scheduled
call meeting, it's part of the agenda
Part of the agenda.
for that committee,
for the full commission.
for the full commission? So you would come in with the committee and hear.
Help me, Nick, but what happens is that the full commission will have to approve the committee structure.
Right.
As soon as that's done, the committees retire to this room to elect a chair and a vice chair, and that's it. It's not a meeting. All it is part of the agenda to elect their leaders. So
Okay.
the next committee meeting that happens, someone puts together the agenda and is in charge of it.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty close. That's pretty close. So in my eyes, the way I look at these things is if another committee is meeting, you don't have an open commission session. And it just makes sense to me to have the commission go into recess and allow those individual committees to meet and elect their officers. Now, in terms of the notice being given, I'm a conservationalist, so I don't want to waste a bunch of paper if I don't have to by issuing a bunch of different notices for each individual committee. I think that a reasonable person would interpret reasonable notice if you put it on the very same county commission meeting. And on the agenda items, you have steering committee, or not steering committee, budget committee, health committee, whatever, and then underneath the subsection, election of chairman and election of vice chairman. Everybody's on notice that that's what's being taken place. When that comes up in the agenda, you recess the county commission. The first one comes up on the piece of paper where they're noticed, and those committees meet and elect their officers. Once that's all concluded, you call the county commission meeting back into session. At that point, all the committees have selected their officers, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Logistically, I just think we can do it all open. Nobody's moving.
And you can do what I've just said and just nobody move. Right? You just stay in there.
Well, we need to make a motion in there to do it that way.
Can I think about that? And I'm sure it'll be on the agenda. I'll coordinate with the chairman.
Just do that with the chairman, and we'll just go by the way what the chairman tells us to do.
And I did mention earlier that it might be good to just have a motion to approve the process this go around so that everybody's on the same page and moving forward with this election cycle.
We're getting to the point where we're putting a lot of wheels in all of it. We're making it difficult.
Well, I agree. What's made it difficult is I don't see any rules that say how to do it. All I've heard is it's how we've done it forever. This committee is charged with establishing those. Correct? Am I correct in saying that? So, a year from now, when we go through the committee changes again, and we've got some time to do this, obviously, there should be something in writing that everybody knows how this happens. Because right now, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's just been all over the board. And the only explanation I've had is, well, that's how we've always done it. But there's no rule that says you leave this room and go into this room. It's just the way it's been done.
Do we have a motion on this? So we're just we're kind of getting off a little bit. It's getting a little bit out. Nick, what I suggest is we get with the chairman.
Yeah,
I think that I'm going to agree with Commissioner Rather. Also, we need to get with the county clerk and see if we can have the minutes in here, which is what Commissioner Stevens wants, and as far as Commissioner Rather goes, look at having it out, making sure it's completely transparent. Everybody sees it. Everybody, you got to understand, we have never once stopped anybody from coming in here. Not one time. And it's been open, and he's right, it's been like that for years, and you're absolutely right. That's what they'll say, but let's try to make this as transparent as we can. Get with the chairman on that. Is everybody good with that? Everybody good? Okay, here we go. What's the next thing? Litigation list. Commissioner, you'll see a litigation list on your iPad. Is there any questions? If none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I think that's just for our information.
It's just for information, okay.
Litigation information.
And the next thing, is there any other business? If there is none, this meeting, hold
Mr.
on.
Chairman, I want to say something. I mentioned the fact that last night was the TCAS Fall Conference. There were about 7 of us that were there from the county commission, which is open to all county commissioners. That conference is where all the counties within this region, all county commissioners invited, where we go through some training, as well as gives you an opportunity to meet with other county commissioners from other counties. And last evening, one thing that was done that was very informal and very informative was a open session to ask questions. And we had some really good questions, and Commissioner P asked one concerning solid waste. And he let all the other counties know that Rutherford County had voted to close the landfill in about 8 years. And we wanted to know if the other counties actually knew that. And we saw several county commissioners from other counties look like deer in the headlights. They didn't know it. And so Commissioner P did a great job bringing that out to the fact where he wanted to know what all the other counties were doing. And we learned some very interesting things from other counties, what they're talking about, what they're suggesting, and it was really good to hear that. And then Williamson County brought out some problems they were having. And it dealt with the urban growth and things of what other cities are doing. And it was really good just to see that some of the other counties are having some of the same problems we are having. There was also discussion about the counties that are growing so fast and they're not getting their share of state money. And we had a very vocal, I guess you'd say, an agreement from some of the larger counties, basically telling some of the smaller counties, you know, stop stopping us down at the state legislature to give us an opportunity to help us build some of these schools and take care of some of these problems. So it turned out real good. And it's also a reminder giving there that if you are a new commissioner, that you have to go through so much training each year. What was it, Steve? They're only, what, 7 hours?
7 hours, I think.
7 hours a year new commissioners have to go through. That was passed by the state legislature. And there are several things coming up that give you that opportunity to do that. But it turned out real well. But I do want to say on this Chairman Pro Tem, I wasn't trying to muddy the water to get it messed up. But I know it's going to take some time for us to get this correct. And I think it's vital. I think it's important we do this. I think it's a good idea because we're at a point where we need to do some things to be prepared if we happen to need this at some time.
Anybody else? Since there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned.